We might make a start, Julie. I'll just say welcome to you in particular. It's lovely to have you here talking to us today, sharing your journey. We got to follow it on Facebook, and very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say. For those of you who don't know Julie, she's been a long-standing member of the Brisbane Society, very active up there for a number of years. She and Ken, her husband, live out. Where is it you are? Boona?
West of Brisbane, in a town called Ipswich.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we moved into Ipswich from Boona in 2017 because of all our children were attending the high school in here. And it was just really difficult for them to get the bus back and do extracurricular stuff. So we're living in the switch.
Yeah, lovely. So look, lovely to welcome you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. We were talking just prior to everybody coming in about questions, and I think Julie's going to give us an opportunity to chime in at certain points when she's ready, rather than hold all the questions to the end.
Yep.
So look, Julie, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Well, thank you for asking me, first of all, and it's nice because I did this pilgrimage in May and June last year, so it feels like an eternity ago now, but it's nice to talk about it and reminisce. So I thought we'll go through, and I was just saying to David and Pam that I'm a primary school teacher, so I'm not going to be able to talk for 45 minutes straight without you interrupting and giving me questions. So I fully expect you to throw some questions out. So what I'm going to do is each slide I put up, I'll talk to it. And before we move on to the next one, if you have any questions, just throw them at me and we'll go from there. So, all right. So the Camino de Santiago is a pilgrimage to the remains of St. James, the Apostle, in Santiago de Compostela, which is on the west coast of Spain. So not quite on the coast, but just in from there. And you can, once you get to Santiago, you can finish it by walking to Finisterre, which literally means end of the world, which a lot of pilgrims do. They walk on there. But yeah, when you go to the cathedral, you can see what's on the picture there. You can actually go into the crypt underneath, and they only allow you to go in one at a time, and you can spend time in there and give thanks or pray or whatever you want to do when you get to the remains of St. James.
Oh.
Right, so just some little facts about the Camino. I thought we'd go through that. So the Camino is, well, Camino actually means to walk, really. So it's walking to Santiago. And there's lots and lots of them that you can do. So the one that I did was the Camino Frances, which starts just over the border from Spain into France in St. John, Pierre de Port. And then you go through the Pyrenees and all the way across. And it's quite long. I didn't start mine in St. John Pierre de Port because I didn't feel that I had the capabilities to walk the Pyrenees. So I began in Pamplona, which I only missed 3 days of walking, really. So it was 715 kilometres all up, which I did over 31 days. Anyone who walks is a pilgrim. Anyone who rides a donkey is a pilgrim. Anyone who rides a bike is a pilgrim. So anyone who travels this path is a pilgrim. There's paths that start in England. There's paths that start in Germany, in Portugal, and lots of different paths through Spain itself. So the Camino Frances is the most well-known of them, but there are lots and lots of pilgrimages that end up in Santiago.
Julie.
Yep.
Julie, the picture that was on the screen when I logged in, it made the path look reasonably narrow, and yet I also read somewhere just tonight that cyclists and people on horseback, how did you negotiate on a fairly narrow path?
Well, the entire path is not that narrow.
Okay.
And a lot of the path is alongside roads.
Right.
So cyclists will go on the road.
Oh, okay.
And there are a couple of times that people are traveling on donkeys or horses, and you can hear them coming for miles because it's so quiet in a lot of the country. So you just pull over and you stand under a tree and you watch them go by and say hello, and yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Lovely. So this is a little brief history of it, I thought, which might set the scene before I talk about my own pilgrimage. So it's known as the Way of St. James. The legend holds that his remains were carried by boat from Jerusalem to the north of Spain, and that he's in that crypt now under the cathedral.
Is that authentic?
Sorry?
Has that been authenticated, his relics of St. James?
Oh, look, as much as you can believe Catholic mythology.
Yeah,
You know, it could have been a dead animal's bones dug up along the way and shoved in there. I don't know. That makes me a bad Catholic, doesn't it?
on point taken.
But yeah, so and I was thinking that when I was standing in front of them at the very end, cynically, but that was a very fleeting thought, because very soon you become overwhelmed with what it is you've actually done. And I guess being an arts person, a dance person, so much of my life has centered around creating movement and motifs to represent feelings or thoughts or emotions. And so therefore the remains of St. James are that to me. They're feelings and thoughts and emotions and my connection with my God, rather than them being the actual bones of the dude. So, yeah.
Just to add to that, the crown of thorns is in Paris, in Notre Dame. The original crown of thorns.
There you go. Have you seen it?
Yeah, Notre Dame.
There you go.
When it burnt down, or when it caught fire,
Of course.
the whole team went in to rescue the, at the risk of being burned alive, to save the crown of thorns. And they, anyway, that's it. Sorry for the divergence.
That's incredible.
Mm.
I mean, there's so much of it all around the world, really, isn't there? And I'm sure I don't know that we've got Mary MacKillop's bones hidden here somewhere in Australia, but I'm sure that we've got some of her ephemera that's held in sanctuary for people to come and reflect on her life as well. So, yeah.
Growing up as a Catholic, they used to sell crucifixes, and the really expensive ones had a relic. You just open the back and had a little, a relic inside a tiny splinter of bone or something. But they didn't know who it was, but they knew it was a saint.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anywhere, Ken and I are prolific travellers, and wherever we go in the world, we tend to be drawn to places of religious significance, whether that's a worldwide thing or whether that's just for the people of where they live. But there's always relics of some sort somewhere, aren't they? And I think I've moved past them being whether those relics are real or not, more that they're a conduit to someone's relationship with a creator. So this walk, this Camino, has been around for some time, but it sort of rose to prominence in the Middle Ages, and I suppose lots of religions have that, the visiting Mecca and things like that. But this was quite something that you were kind of expected to do. And then that, I don't know at what point in history that really died off, but out of a sense of wanting to keep the towns alive in Spain, about 20 years ago, the walk was kind of reinvigorated, and the people across Spain, I guess, really claimed it for themselves and made sure that the paths were well kept and the signage was there, and that there were albergues and the churches were open. And so it's really become a living pilgrimage again. So here's a quick map. Sorry. This is a quick map of all the Caminos in Spain, and you can see the one from St. Jean Pied de Port across to Compostela. That's the one that I did, and lots of people do the one through Portugal up the side. That's probably a really popular one. And the one along the top, the purple one, is the Camino del Norte, which I don't know if any of you have seen the film The Way with Charlie Sheen. Is it Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
Yes. So The Way was filmed along the one that I did, the Camino Frances, but they're currently filming another one now on the North Camino that's being shot at the moment. And all along the Camino Frances at various places, you can see where the actors had been. There's things bronzed in the footpath or signs, or albergues where they stay would, you know, promote that this is where these actors stayed. And yeah, so that's kind of a cute way of bringing in modern living into the Camino while you're walking through medieval towns. The Camino Frances is really well, it's very well set up for pilgrims. So you can walk 5 or 6 kilometers and come to a small town. There's, I think the longest stretch between toilets and drink stops would be about 16 kilometers. And that's along the entire 715 Ks that I walked. So you're not far from anywhere. And wherever you go, you can walk into a church. They're always open and very hospitable. So yeah, and that was quite lovely about it, because when you're hot and tired, they just welcome you to come in. And some of those churches would have nuns or priests sitting there, and they would get buckets of water and they would wash your feet for you. It was really very much acts of service, which is very humbling. And it took me some time to be able to accept that. I would often just go in and light a candle and pray and then hit the road again. But yeah, so that's quite confronting, but also quite lovely. Some of the other ones, the Portuguese one is pretty well set up as well. The Camino del Norte and the Primitivo, and the other ones aren't as well serviced because they're not as popular. But the Camino Frances is a really good one if you're wanting to do a pilgrimage and it's the first time you go. So in getting ready to do my pilgrimage, I can't even tell you when I had the idea to do it. It wasn't like a moment where I sat down and went, I'm turning 50 next year, what do I want to do? I guess going to Catholic school, I knew that it existed, and I enjoy walking, and I enjoy travel, and I enjoy languages, and it just over time became an idea that crystallized and then became a happening thing when Ken said, just go and do it. So yeah, it was nice. So one of the things that I did first, you can see there's a forum URL, that's the first dot point. So I kind of dove into that, became immersed in that community of people who have walked, people who are walking, and people who want to walk, because it's just full of advice. And Ivor himself would have Zoom meetings like we're having now. There are forums with lots of people, with lots of back and forth. And I suppose after about 5 months of working, I decided I'd had enough of everyone else's advice. And I thought, right, I need to shut that out now and start thinking about what I want from it and how I want to do it. So, and that advice ranged from things like, you know, oh, don't be a solo woman walking on your own, and watch out for strange men lurking behind trees, and, you know, that kind of practicality sort of stuff, through to how to find a bed at night, through to blisters and everything, and through to people talking about their own religious or spiritual experiences. So it ran the full gamut. And that became quite overwhelming after a while. So I really had to push that away. But from that, I decided that I needed to finish this walk. It's a hell of a long way to go from Australia to go to Spain. So I didn't want to get over there, get injured, 7 days in, and have to come home. So I decided I would use a company who would book all my accommodation for me every night, so I didn't have to worry about the bed race, and who would carry my big backpack forward every day. So I just carried a day pack with maps, my phone, water and food. And I found the Natural Adventure Company were absolutely wonderful. There are a lot of companies offering those services, and I kind of went for just the mid-range in price point in the end, and checked TripAdvisor for reviews. So natural adventure, and they were magnificent right from the start, and me just talking to them right through to the very end of it when I landed back in Australia and messaged them and said, you know, thanks so much. So all along the way, they were there for support if I needed them, and they were really wonderful. I can't speak highly enough. They said to me, credential, and every pilgrim has a credential, which is like a passport. So you take this passport, and every church you go into, every albergue that you stay at, coffee shops where you stop to get water or use the bathroom, you can get a stamp. You stamp your passport. So every stamp is different, which is lovely, because at the end you've got, depending on how far you've walked, I had 2 passports full of stamps. And I could look back at them and go, oh, that was from that little place, and oh, that was from that little place, and it's a nice keepsake. But what it also means is if you're into validation, yes, I am. When you get to Santiago, if you have walked at least a minimum of 100 kilometres, you get a certificate saying that you've done Camino. And so you show them your credentials, your passports with all the stamps. And so they could see that I started in Pamplona. So my certificate was, you know, that Julie Barnes, and they write your name in Latin, began in Pamplona and she finished in Santiago. She's walked 715 kilometres, and then you can get another one as well. I got 2. Forget what the second one's for, but that's what that passport's really for. So it's either a keepsake, or if you're like me, it gives you a certificate at the end. So that was really special. That's a nice piece of ephemera to keep at the end of it. I think if I was to walk it again, I wouldn't bother a second time, because, you know, I think the first time's very special. And lastly, part of my getting ready was learn Spanish. And so anytime we've gone overseas, when we went to Russia, we spent a year learning Russian. When we went to Turkey, we learned Turkish, you know. So me going to Spain, I have to learn the language, because I want to talk to people, and I want to be able to order food, and I want to be able to get on the phone and fix a problem if there is a problem. And so that was really important to me. But if you're not into learning languages, it doesn't matter. And it won't detract from your experience, because so many people speak English, of course. And a lot of people that you meet along the way aren't Spaniards. They're from Korea, or they're from Mexico, or wherever. So you learn to just talk in sign language. Yeah. So are there any questions about any of those before I move on?
So this address you've got at the top, Iva is a person.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So Caso's house, Ivar's house in Santiago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's obviously something of an expert on the pilgrimage, I presume.
He really is. He has an office near the cathedral in Santiago, and he offers services also if pilgrims want to leave their bags there while they're going to mass or wanting to just walk around. He has rooms there where pilgrims can come and sit and talk either to him or to his staff and to each other, to decompress and unpack what they've just done. Like, he offers all sorts of services as well. So he is a real person.
Lovely.
Julie, what did you know, you've made up this mind, you've heard enough about other people's experiences and their advice.
Yep.
When you came, what was your motivation?
So it's purely selfish. Every year I have a birthday that ends in an O. I have to do something, and whether that's because I have this fear of aging and getting old, and I know where it comes from, and I'm not going to share that with you, but I really have a deep-seated fear. And so when I am turning a number that ends in 0, I need to do something that challenges myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's got to cover all of it. You know, when I was 40, I ran a marathon. You know, when I was 30, I did things. So 50 was like, and I said to Ken, this is for me, just like running my marathon was for me. This is for me. I don't want to share it with you. I don't want to do this with you. I want you to be a cheerleader for me. I want you to love me, but I don't want to do this with you. I have to do this on my own. So that's where it's come from, Ian.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, just a second before you
Yep.
go on, Julie,
hmm.
was there anything kind of spiritual in that motivation? I mean, you have talked so far about stopping at various places where that crypt is with the remains of St. James. You know, there were the times and moments of prayer, but I'm taking it they weren't sort of identified in your mind when you set out.
Correct.
And yet you made it something spiritual.
No, I did not make it something spiritual.
Okay.
In fact, the spiritual aspect of it and what I expected to get out of it spiritually, I deliberately didn't reflect on it in my planning. And it probably wasn't until my boots hit the gravel in Spain where it absolutely hit me like a tidal wave. And I'll talk about that a bit later when I get to that point in my presentation.
Yes.
But up to that point, you know, I go to Mass every Sunday, and I go to Catholic Mass again now after years and years of not going. And I have to go on my own. I need anonymity. I can't go to a church anymore where I'm known by everyone. It's triggering for me. So I like to sit in the congregation of a Catholic church. I like to be immersed in the smells and the bells. Yes, so I was going to Mass, I was lighting candles, and I was thinking and praying in the ways that I do, but I had no hopes or expectations of a spiritual awakening on my Camino. And I guess that's because reading these forums, lots of people said they went over with expectations and were bitterly disappointed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it was leaving it open. And I'll talk about what happened later. Yeah. There's, if you're interested in having a look at the maps, you can see there, if you go to caminofrances.info, there's a really wonderful interactive map, so you can hover your mouse over towns and it gives you information. You can see pictures. The way markers along the way, you can see these pictures I've got up here. So whenever you see a shell, you just follow the arrow, you follow those markers. On the second row, the second one in from the right, that's most of what I follow. You see these sort of low plinths with the arrow and the shell on them. When you're in the medieval cities, in the first row, the second one in, you see these bronze shells embedded in the footpaths. And then places along in the countryside, particularly along the Meseta, you'll just see arrows painted on trees or whatever. So, but they're so constant, you can't miss it. You know, I was born hiding behind a door when the good Lord gave out a sense of direction. I did not receive one. And whenever Ken and I have travelled, because he has an eidetic memory, he can look at a map and just go, this is the way we're going. Whereas I'll stand there and go, where have we just been? I don't know where we are.
Yeah.
And so it was a challenge for me to travel on my own because I didn't have my Ken map. So I was very nervous about getting lost, and I didn't get lost at all. It was magnificent. So, and there's a freedom in that. There's an absolute freedom in that. So that's why the Camino Frances was also a good choice for me, because it was so set out for gormless people like me with no sense of direction. So, and so long as I kept moving west, I knew I was going in the right direction. If I left an albergue in the morning and I was walking into the sun, I'd go, oh, Julie, you're heading east, turn around. And I'd go the other way out of town. So, you know, that was the way to do it. And so accommodation, sorry, was there a question? I don't know whether there's a question or it was the feedback.
Don't think so.
Okay, yep. Accommodation was a real mix of things, but I'm really glad that I booked my accommodation ahead every night. So people who choose to stay in the albergues are set up for pilgrims, purely for pilgrims, not for tourists or things like that. So, and they're usually attached to a church or a monastery, and they're run by the nuns or the priests. and they have so many, they're limited to so many beds, and it's just a big open dormitory with bunk beds in them. Some places will have dormitories for males and for females, but most of them are, it's all mixed in, and that's fine. That would be fine for me if I was staying. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But you have to get there by 1 p.m. and you have to line up to get a bed that night, because there are so many pilgrims on the road. And these towns, particularly little towns, they might only have maybe 2 working albergues at the time, particularly now post-COVID, because a lot of them during COVID and post-COVID, they shut down because there were no pilgrims on the road. So beds are limited. So you have to leave, you know, I would see these people leaving at, you know, before dawn, you know, at 5 in the morning, getting on the road, thump, 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 walking as fast as they can, not stopping for breaks, not stopping to smell the roses. And then they're lining up to get a bed. And I think, oh, that's not for me. I don't want that. So that's why I deliberately booked accommodation before I even got to Spain. If you stay in an albergue, it's free, or it's a donativo. So you'll pay, you know, I think €5 is the suggested amount you might donate. And for that €5, you get a bed with no sheets or things like that. You'll get a shower, but it's cold water. But you do get a lovely hot meal, a communal meal. And I've heard people speaking so beautifully about those communal meals where either everyone mucks in and makes the meal and then shares it together, or the nuns or the priests make the meal and then they serve you the meal. So being the introvert that I am, and that just sounds like hell for me to spend a night with strangers and have to be forced to talking to them and sharing a meal with them. My problem, not theirs. And so that's another reason why I chose to book my own accommodation in advance. So I had my own bathroom, my own bed, and if I had enough of the company of others, I could just retreat and decompress. So
you had a room to yourself?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was magnificent. Some of the accommodation was bare bones basic, and that's fine. That's fine because I'm not a princess. But some of the accommodation was just gorgeous, and yeah. So, and then I struggle with things like, oh gosh, do I deserve to be in this room? You know, so you know, that's where those spiritual things start to creep in, and yeah. With regard to baggage, less is more. So if you want to carry, if you're going to be the pilgrim who takes their own baggage and stays in albergues, you don't carry more than 10% of your body weight on your back. That's the general guide that they say to anyone who does hiking, whether it's the Pacific Crest Trail or whether you're walking Larapinta Trail in Australia or whatever, no more than 10% of your body weight should you carry on your back. And for me, I'm just sending that on ahead, and I just had a little day pack which would have weighed about 3 kilos. It was very freeing to do that, and it also meant that I'm not injuring my body. I'm not stuffing up my knees because I'm carrying excessive weight.
So is it mainly change of clothes, water bottle, stuff like that?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Is it mainly having a change of clothes so you can freshen up?
Yes. Yeah.
That sort of stuff?
Yep, that's right.
Water bottle and
Yeah.
snacks, what do they call them? Trail
mix.
trail food, or there's a name for it. Forgot
Yes, scroggin in New Zealand, they call it scroggin.
Oh,
Yeah. Having done it now, I wouldn't even take food with me because those towns are so close together. You can find something to eat along the way. The only reason why I carry, like I'd always had like a bag of dried apricots, a small block of chocolate, and 2 litres of water just in case I got lost and wasn't near a food source. So, but now that I've done it, I wouldn't even worry about that. I'd take water, obviously, but I wouldn't worry about food. So, yeah, but that's just me now, having done it.
where do you have a shower? Oh,
Sorry?
where do you shower and you go to the toilet and all that sort of stuff on the trail?
So, in the accommodation I stayed at, the rooms that I had booked for myself had its own private bathroom, so that wasn't a problem. If you stay in an albergue, which is the dormitory style accommodation, you have to share bathrooms and toilets with other people. So, and I think that's another reason why people rush not only to get a bed, but so they can get in first and use the bathrooms before they become trashed by other people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I heard stories along the way, which were kind of sad, but not unexpected, that even though it is a pilgrimage and you're supposed to take care of the environment that you're in and take care of others within that environment, that people would leave bathrooms and shared facilities in quite a mess. So again, that's not for
Horrible.
me. That's right. When you're walking along the way, again, there's so many little coffee shops and hole in the wall little cafes. If you buy a bottle of water or a cup of coffee, you can use the facilities if you need to use them along the walk. I think there are probably about 5 times along the entire 715 kilometres that I had to do a bush wee, and that's not a problem because there were trees around, and I don't have any shame, so I just go and do what I have to do, and of course you just be environmentally careful and leave things, you know, so that other people don't have to come across your own mess. So yeah. So I've written a list of the highs and the lows of my Camino. If you read up the top, it says that the Camino happens in 3 stages. And the first stage is for the body, which is all about your physical fitness. So that's that coming over the Pyrenees and walking up until the start of the Meseta. Because it's very hilly. I was surprised how hilly it was. The second part of the walk is for your mind, and that's walking along the plains of Spain, the Meseta, because it's flat and it just goes for miles. If you rolled a bowling ball, it would just keep going. There's nothing to stop it. And a lot of people don't walk the Meseta because they're frightened of it, or for whatever reasons, whether that's spiritual or mental or physical. But I loved it. It would have to be my favorite part of the entire walk. And then the final stage of it is for the soul. And I have to say that is 100% true, absolutely 100% true. So, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So the highs for me in walking to Santiago was the landscape. I love the landscapes of the geography of other countries. Anything that's foreign or alien to how Australia looks is fascinating to me. Anything, any little similarities I can find also fascinates me. And it all just boils down to how the earth was made in the first place, you know, like those tectonic plates pushing and creating mountain ranges. And it just makes me feel like that's small and insignificant as opposed to creation. So that really floats my boat. The medieval towns, walking through those was a massive high for me because we don't have towns of that age in Australia. And so to walk in the footsteps of other people who have walked the same paths as me, on the same cobblestones as me, is humbling. The individuals that I met along the way were some real highs, but two in particular, a lady by the name of Carol and a lady by the name of Lila. So Carol is a lady from Canada, and she was magnificent. She turned 82 on that walk. This was her 3rd time walking Camino, and she was a wiry, tough little nugget, and by God, I loved her. She was just, I just got no words. She's magnificent. We would share meals, we'd walk together, and then you kind of walk on, and then you discover that you've wound up in the same town again 4 days later, and you go, oh, hi. And it's like your long lost best friends, and she just made you feel like you were such a special person in her life. So she was magnificent. And then the other lady, Lila, was from Ireland. She was a nurse from Ireland, my vintage. And we talked books. We had this walking book club. And we discovered this shared love of Alexander McCall's novels. And we would just be walking at great clip, and talk. And people would, you know, when we stopped, they go, do you two never shut up? So, and she was lovely too, because I guess of all the people that I met along the way, those 2 people really resonated with me because we fell into conversations easily. And then when we had enough, we just fell quiet and we'd walk quietly and then we'd separate. And then, you fall back, see each other at dinner at the same restaurant, and then you'd sit and have chats again. And there was a real easiness about that. It didn't feel forced or false, or like I had to be someone I wasn't, or apologize, like I've had enough of that conversation, I've got to go now. It was just really lovely. They were just my people. So, and it was a blessing to have met them and to, just to share their friendship. The San Anton ruins, if you get a chance to Google them later, they brought me to my knees. It was halfway between Hontanas and Castrohoes, which is along the Mazita. And it was a cathedral in its time, but as well as being a cathedral, it was a hospitalario where pilgrims could come and spend the night. There's a place where you could put your animals for the night and lock it all up, and then everyone was locked inside at night to stop from who are they? Criminals that come along and pillage and steal stuff.
Bandits or whatever.
That's the word. Yep. And so you could stay in there, and it still runs not as a hospitalario now, but they provide meals by donation. And so as you come, you've walked up this horrendous sort of long, steep incline. And I suppose I reached them about 1:30 in the afternoon. It was quite warm for that time of year. And as you come around the corner, you just see the sandstone or whatever stone it is, the ruins. There's no roof on it, but the walls, 3/4 of the walls are still intact. And then, I was just stopped in my tracks. I literally stood there for 10 minutes just staring at it, going, holy moly, this is what everybody else who has walked this path before me has walked up this path and seen this rise above them. So, and then when you walk inside and you go sort of around the corner, you see where the altar, where masses were held. And it's obviously a replica of the altar that was there. But there's an artwork, an installation of Christ on the cross done in bronze hanging over it, but it's hanging low enough that you could go up and touch it if you wanted to. But it's not flat against the wall. It's leaning over the altar. And it's such a visceral, you get the nails. It was phenomenal. So I sat there for ages, just chewing on my dried apricots and drinking my water and marveling at someone else's interpretation of their relationship with Jesus Christ in a place where so many people have wanted to find relationship with Jesus Christ. But then I'm also surrounded by this circus of people who are walking to Santiago who, it's not for me to judge. I don't know whether they have a relationship or not, but it felt like it was a Disneyland for them. Oh, look at this, and oh, look at that. And so part of me could marvel at their naivety and their excitement and their happiness or whatever. Part of me was just raging against, how can you be so unspiritual, for want of an inauthentic word, but and that's the first time I truly felt like that on this walk, and then it hits me again later on. But it was magnificent. It was absolutely magnificent. So just even to look at it, if you go and Google it later, go and have a look at it. But it was really something for me. Two other towns along the way, Lyon and Astorga, were fun, great medieval towns, particularly Astorga because of Gaudi's architecture. So his buildings, one of his first buildings that he designed, but also had a hand in building, was in Astorga, and I stayed in a hotel opposite that building. It was just amazing to look at. And Lyon is just a gorgeous town again with beautiful old buildings, and it was lively, a great vibe, a lovely place to be. But those two places stole my heart. Another high was the solitude and the quiet of the walkings for the first 2/3 of my Camino until I hit Saria. So even though there were lots of pilgrims along the way, it was very quiet because there were those people that set off before dawn. So they got well along the track before I did. But we were quite spread out. So you could walk in absolute solitude if you wanted to and not talk to another person. And if you wanted to talk to another person, you kind of you come up to them and you said, "One Camino," and they would say, "One Camino" in return. And you can ask how they are, and they'll say, "Fine," and not say anything else. And you get the idea they don't want to talk, or they'll say, "Oh, I'm great," and this and that, and then they'll talk. So, you know, people sort of leave you in freedom to come and go as you please. And so I really love the solitude. I like the sound of the stones under my feet crunching and the rhythm. Again, that's me, a dancer. The rhythm and the pattern and the music that my body made against the ground under my feet was really special. I enjoyed that. And lastly, the high was limon cerveza, so which is lemon beer. Oh my word. There is, like, I know that there is nothing like a cold beer at the end of the day when you've been working hard. But nothing beats Spanish beer, a lemon beer. It's just so great. So if you want to make it here in Australia, you get a Pilsner probably, and you put a half Pilsner and then half like a lemon solo. It's delicious. It's delicious. Yeah. Yeah, the lows are people. So particularly from Saria to Santiago, which is the last 100 kilometers that you can walk and get a certificate to say that you've walked Camino. There are so many people, and it's often called Spanish Disneyland because lots of people in Spain walk this, and lots of people from other parts of Europe come over because they've only got 2 weeks off for their holidays, so they come and walk that section. And it's loud and it's noisy, and it's full of Americans who have no filter between their brain and what comes out of their mouth. Yeah. To the point where, and this was a spiritual thing for me, that I said, "Dear Lord, why are you challenging me? Why am I feeling so angry against my fellow man?" And so that was I had to push through that and work through that. And I don't know that I had by the time I got to Santiago. But I just found, and this is not all Americans, I know this, and this is a wide paintbrush I'm just slashing them with. But I found the disrespect about, they would just voice their, "Why can I get nothing but olives? Why can I get nothing but paella? Why can I, or they didn't come and serve me fast enough last night, or my bed was lumpy, or it's like, really? You're not in America anymore. You're here." And yeah, so anyway, I only said something once because I walk with walking poles, with hiking poles, because biomechanically they give you 20% more distance in your walking abilities in a day.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. And if you know how to walk with them properly and correctly, you can find articles anywhere on the internet which talks about why, but it's a fact, and that's what it is. And I overheard this family coming up behind me. There were about 8 of them, family and friends. And I'm walking in front of them with my poles. And there's a young girl in her 20s, and her mother said to her, "Oh, what do you think about these hiking poles?" And she said, "Oh, look, people, if you need to walk with hiking poles, you shouldn't be walking a walk like this." And I thought, And she said, "Oh, they're just crutches for people." And, and she went on and on and on. And I wondered if she thought naively that I didn't speak English, but it was very, very clear that she was talking about my use of these poles because I was the only person in front of the group. So when they came up, and they're very loud talkers, when they came up sort of alongside me, I said, "G'day." And their face was like, oh, hello. Where are you from? I said, oh, I'm from Australia. So we got to talking about where we were from, and anyway, the conversation, whether it was me deliberately steering it that way, or it probably was, if I'm honest. I'm bolshy, I know this. Anyway, so we got to talking about walking poles. And I said, oh, look, you know, perhaps you need to be careful about, you know, I said, you're entitled to your opinion, but if you're going to share them, perhaps you need to be quieter about that. But I said, I just need to let you know that I could walk this 715 kilometres without them, but I walk more effectively with them, and talked about the reasons. And she was like, oh, I had no idea. I said, yeah, you know, there you go. And then switched the topic onto something else. Where are you staying tonight or whatever? So then I felt Catholic guilt for putting her in a place. So the next 5 kilometres I'm walking going, oh, bloody hell, Julie, keep your mouth shut. You know, what did that serve? That served my ego. So, you know, but so people were a pain in the ass. Yeah, they're loud. Lots of people walk with these boombox things. It's like I was back in the 80s. I was waiting for them to bring out their cardboard and break dance on the ground, you know, with music blaring, and then people are singing and reciting poetry, and you know, and one part of my brain's like, how cool is that? That they're having a fun, wonderful time and enjoying each other's company in nature, doing a walk like this. And the other part of it is that I've just walked 600 bloody kilometres in the quiet, and now you're making it noisy. So that was a real struggle. That was and that was all about me. That was, you know, that was very much a struggle for me. And the last low was a place called Atapuerca, and that was a low because that was the only place along the walk that I had incredible expectations of, because it houses an ancient early civilization archaeological dig site. Archaeology gets me off. I love it. Like, to stand, like when I was at Skara Brae and I stood there where these early peoples gave birth and fed each other and worked the land, and you know, and I thought, oh, to be in Atapuerca in a place like that, I was super, super excited. Anyway, because I just kind of go with the flow and don't think about too much, I set off on that day, not realizing it was the biggest day. That was a 32-kilometre day of walking.
Oh.
And prior to that, the biggest day I'd done was 25 kilometres. And 25 kilometres, I'm starting to tap out. It's like, yeah, I've kind of had enough at this point. 32 Ks, well, I was just a blubbering mess by the end of it. And unfortunately, to get to the place I was staying, I had to walk 5 kilometres past Atapuerca archaeological dig site. And it was a little country town, and so it's not like I could get an Uber or a bus to get back to it. So as I walked past, because I thought if I walk down that road and go to that dig site to get there before it closes, I'm not going to be able to walk the next 5 Ks to get to my accommodation that night. So it was a real, oh, I'm just going to have to leave it. I'm just going to have to leave it. And then when I got to where I was staying that night, there were some people who'd been to the site and were talking about how wonderful it was. So I had my lemon beer and I just listened, and I thought, well, I wasn't meant to go there, and I was meant to experience this through other people experiencing it. And whilst that was an interesting way to have that experience, it was a real low point. And I think that's partly because physically I was shattered, absolutely shattered that day. So that kind of played in very poorly into my state of mind about missing that. So yeah, it's real highs, real lows. But that's all. You just have to kind of sit into that. Yeah. So when I got back, I found that there was a real difficulty in talking authentically about my experience, and probably tonight is the first time I have been allowed a platform to share my pilgrimage and my experience. it's not that my family and my friends didn't want to know about it. They did, you know. So great to see you. Love watching your Instagram and your Facebook photos, and looks wonderful. Tell me about what you enjoyed. But you know, in your mind, you can share so much until people turn off. You know, it's like, can somebody truly listen to what you're saying and have an understanding of the depth of what you've done when you talk about it? And, you know, if any one of you sitting here listening to me talk today tries to tell me about your own incredible experience that you've had, I can listen to it and I can be enthralled, but I can't really know what it is because that's not my experience. And yeah. So I feel like whenever anyone says, oh, you know, what, how far did you walk? Oh, 715 kilometers. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And, you know, and everything's very surface. And that's fine. That's fine. So, but it was very difficult to, I also didn't want to bring it up and go, can I tell you about my Camino? Can I tell you about this experience? Because, you know, I've been raised female in Australia in the time that I did, where you don't big note yourself and you don't talk about yourself and you don't push yourself forward, and otherwise it's all bragging. So, you know, that's very difficult to still to push through that. When I got back, I did spend 5 months in an absolute depressed state. And I had read on those forums about people having that experience, and arrogantly, I thought, that's not me. I'm not a depressed person. I'm a glasses half full person. And I'm a Pollyanna. I'm glad, glad, glad. And I did not prepare myself for that, didn't even think about the possibility of that, and was shocked to my very core that that's what I had. Yeah, it's, and because and this is where, coming back to Ian's question earlier about, did I expect a spiritual experience? And I didn't set out to expect one. And I didn't have one on my walk, really. I don't think I did. I had experiences where I was pulled up short and in awe. I had awe-filled experiences of like walking into the ruins at St. Anton, or finally walking into the square in Santiago and falling to my knees in front of that cathedral and just sobbing because I achieved something physical, but it wasn't a spiritual experience really in what I expected. The spiritual experience happened when I came home and found myself not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to go to work, not wanting to be intimate with my husband, not wanting to share things with anybody. And having to ask why. And, you know, and I'm not going to share those things with you, but doing the walk strips you down. It strips you down to the bare nothing, because it asks so much of you physically to walk. Now, I'm a physically fit person. I've been a dancer my entire life. My feet held up just fine. And I saw these poor sods along the way with their blisters broken and infected and bleeding, and people tending to their feet. I didn't have any of that, you know. My muscles were tired, but I would do yoga and stretch every night, and I knew how to care for my body. So, but it's physically exhausting. So it strips you down that way. And I didn't realize that I would really be stripped down when I got home. Didn't even think about that. Reflecting on my walk, you know, I did it myself. I did it on my own. And to face the fact that I enjoyed all of those weeks being on my own, I did not miss my children. I did not miss my husband. I love them, but I did not miss them. what does it say about me? And, you know, reflecting on my conversations with God along the way, they were really stupid conversations like, oh, don't let me get lost today. You know, let me find a good water source along the way if my water runs out, or, you know, I'd light a candle and pray for family back home. But there was nothing that had me, I don't know, really intense along the way. And it wasn't until I came back that I questioned that and wondered why. And that's when I really started to have some authentic conversations with my God and my creator. So, yeah. And, and I am incredibly, I don't know, guilty, sad. I don't know what the word is. But what pulled me out of those 5 months of absolute depression was the death of a girlfriend of mine. And I think, how freaking selfish is that it takes a good friend to die to make me wake up and go, for Christ's sake, Julie, you know, you're healthy, you've got a roof over your head, you want for nothing. I'm so well cared for in this world. What have I been depressed about for all this time? And, you know, and I haven't had the struggles that my girlfriend did. And, you know, when she succumbed to cystic fibrosis, and yeah, so, and then that was a real turning point. But maybe it just coincided with all the work I did through my depression of talking with God. I don't know, that was kind of like the explosion in my brain. It was Andrea's death was, you know, like, come on, get your shit together, pick it up now and let's keep going. So there was permission to move on. It was permission to move on from the state that I'd been in. So, and yeah, so I did not expect that upon my return. I had to, and I guess I still do, work through how to translate my Camino into everyday life. That experience plus my 5 months afterwards, how do I translate that experience into what I do every day? And some days I can give you a really easy answer, and other days I've got no idea. and I'm at a point now where I think, well, that's the way it's meant to be. I have a particularly persistent girlfriend who I work with, who often asks me about it, and she says, oh, how's that Camino working in your daily life, Julie? And sometimes I'm just really rude and flip of the bird and say, get stuffed, Phyllis, I don't want to talk about it. And other days I have an authentic conversation with her, and, you know, so yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I'm thankful for the thorough preparation that I did, reading books that I read, online forums that I read, the boots that I wore and the bags that I carried. You know, I think those 3 things are really essential, going prepared. And I think if you're prepared for things you can control, like how you're walking every day, where you're going to sleep at night, what boots you're wearing, how much you're going to wear. I only took 3 changes of clothes, you know, because I didn't want to lug heaps of stuff around. I was mentally prepared for all that stuff. So that left space in my head for unexpected things, thoughts that I had about, you know, particularly in that last 100 Ks, about, you know, why am I so confronted about people? There's a lot of space to process that. And I'm thankful for that preparation that I did. I'm thankful for my Catholic upbringing and the experiences I had as a Catholic child. I'm thankful for my Swedenborgian beliefs and experiences that I had later in life as a young adult up to this day. And, you know, I'm thankful for where those 2 intersect, because I could travel my Camino and view it through that lens. I looked through a Catholic lens in my preparation for my Camino, because Spain is a Catholic country and the Camino is a Catholic pilgrimage. You don't have to be a Catholic, you don't have to be a religious person to do it. Lots of people do it because it's beautiful landscape and people like to walk and ride bikes. You don't have to be a religious person at all, but that was the lens that I looked through as I prepared. When I was at masses, because I went to mass most nights, they're all said in Spanish, and it's mass, and I think because of that Catholic, you know when to stand up, sit down, kneel down, get up again, you know that dance. Doesn't matter what language it's said in. So I was grateful for that. But towards the end of it, and particularly in writing my own personal diary and my reflection, having my Swedenborgian experience beliefs that they would color that, or I could look back on experiences I had and go, this is what Swedenborg was talking about when he was talking about the proprium, or that kind of thing. So I'm very grateful for those two parts of my religious life. And the last thing I would suggest is to make a photo album immediately, because when you sit down and go through all your hundreds of photos and you try and put them all in order, I stop and I think, why did I take that photo? Why did I take that photo of that particular thing? And then, you sort of find yourself 45 minutes later still staring at it, reminiscing about a thought that you had in that point. And so that's why I took that photo. And so I think it's really important to not let it sit for too long, because it's a nice way to help you reflect and process what you did if you're going to do a pilgrimage. Yeah.
Julie, do you wish you? No, I don't mean do you wish. It's not. It's something like that. But I'm thinking to myself, on reflection, would you have liked to have done it with somebody else?
No.
Fair enough.
No, I have a girlfriend who's Argentinian, and so I practiced a lot of my Spanish on her before I went. And for a little while there, she was talking about joining me from Sarria for the last 100 kilometers because she has cousins in Spain. And she thought, because she was turning 50 that year as well. She said, I might go to Spain, catch up with family and walk the last 100 Ks. And she was excited and I was excited for my pilgrimage. And so that's both our excitements converged and we went, let's do this together. And then I got home that afternoon after having a conversation with her and I went, oh, Julie, you really got to stop letting your mouth just shoot off and say whatever comes to, think about this. I should have been more cautious in my response, but that's not me. That's not me at all. So anyway, and as it turns out, she didn't come and I was so thankful because I got to do it my way.
Yeah.
I got to, stop whenever I wanted to stop and talk to people, whoever I wanted to talk to or not to talk to, and eat whatever I wanted to eat. And I didn't have to worry about whether someone else was having a comfortable experience.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't worried about if I was having, there are a few days there where I would just cry for no bloody reason. I don't know why, but I would just be walking and crying. And that's okay. But if I had someone walking with me, I would feel like I would have to hold that back.
Yeah, or explain or something.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm crying, and make it something little like I do as a female. I'm sorry, my emotions are making you uncomfortable. I'll try and tuck them back away. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do that. And having someone to walk with you who I think would be for me, is an uncomfortable experience. If it was Ken, no, not at all. We're so comfortable in each other. I don't have to hide anything from him, but he walks too damn fast. I don't want to. I don't want to have to. His legs go on forever, So I just, and I'm a fast walker. I walk at a good clip, but I just do it all my own way. But so that's a good question, Ian. No, I wouldn't do it with anybody. And that was the nice thing about Carol and about Lila, that we could fall into step, get a nice rhythm, and then even without saying anything, we could separate. And there's no judgment.
No. Yeah.
And it's so nice. It's liberating. It's absolutely liberating to not have to think about anyone else. And that was the thing. For the first time in my life as an adult, I didn't have to think about anybody except myself. And God, it feels good to be selfish. I don't have to worry about my husband or my kids or having to call anybody or make sure that people are well fed or not in pain, or, am I talking enough or not talking enough? Am I interesting or not? Am I boring you? No.
But is it selfishness? That's what I want to ask. Is it selfishness, or is it just because what I'm hearing what you did was you were there walking 700 kilometres at your own pace, just being yourself and just getting some sort of calibration in your life. Does that mean that it's selfish? Why, as women, do we have to think that if we're doing something by ourselves, or we're having a meal at a time that's right for us, or we don't have to make an excuse for our feelings, why is that selfish?
Well, it's not. And it took me probably 5 days of walking to make peace with that. So because the role I have played my entire life, being raised as a Catholic child, a Catholic female child, to have expectations that I will get married, take a husband, have children, take them to church, care for them, be the main caregiver. So I knew that that was my life script. I was being set up for that through Catholicism. Then being an eldest daughter, so I had younger sisters, and it was never explicitly stated by my parents, but it's an implicit thing that you know that you have to set an example for people. You're the oldest. Then you get married, and there's a very short window of it just being you and your husband, which is magnificent, special time. All of a sudden, you're pregnant. Oh my gosh, now I'm a caregiver to this thing that I have around me 24/7. And then you give birth to that thing and you are a caregiver all the damn time. And that's fine. I wouldn't have it any other way, because I love my children and I love my husband. But then on top of that, I'm a teacher. And so as a teacher, in particularly a dance teacher, where you have to build relationship authentically really fast to ask students to do what you're asking them to do in good faith and trust. Again, you're in a role where you are caregiving. And so every darn facet of my life is just saturated with me giving. That's okay.
Being worried what somebody else thinks, and you know, and yeah, all that feeling stuff, you know, feeling that responsibility for relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, and if I can be honest here, that part of my falling out with the church up here was a saturation point back then, and I didn't realize it now. It's only through reflection of this pilgrimage. I was saturated as a caregiver because 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, I'm in caregiving mode to my family or to my students or to my husband. And then I go to church on a Sunday where I just want to go to church for 1 hour out of all those hours in the week, and just sit there and absorb a message and think about my God and my Christ and my relationship. But no, I can't, because I'm expected to go out and teach bloody Sunday school and be a caregiver. So, you know, it was a real breaking point for me. And then walking Camino, it took me that time to go, oh my gosh, I can have that chocolate bar for breakfast if I damn well want, and not feel guilt. And I can sleep in, or I can stay up and read a book, or I don't have to talk to anybody or give to anybody. And for a good 5 days, I felt incredibly guilty about that I'm spending my family's money for just me. No one in my family is having this experience. And I'm over here doing stuff for just me. And I've never done that in my entire life until I turned 50. So that's 50 years of life scripting. I had to unpack all of that, and that just unraveled. So yeah, and so I guess I say selfishly because I don't know what the word is, but if I was to do it again, no, I wouldn't take anybody. I want that feeling again of utter freedom.
Julie, I sometimes, I can't do it, I haven't done it quite so frequently, but for years, I used to go from, not frequently, but I used to go to St. John's Cathedral because nobody knows me. I could come, I could go, I didn't have to talk to anybody if I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I loved the anonymity of it.
Yeah.
The second thing I want to say, which Pam took up, unless I've misunderstood, and forgive me if I have, Pam, but the guilt thing is not just a female thing. I've been something like 12 years or so retired, and I still feel guilty if I haven't sat for several hours in front of my laptop each day. That's the truth.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and yeah, absolutely. I hear that, and I know that it's a universal thing, but I can only speak from my perspective as a female with the roles that I've held, and that's the feelings that came out of my Camino. So certainly not to belittle your experience of those feelings at all, Ian.
And I didn't mean,
Just understand
no, I just wanted to make a comment, I
Hmm.
guess, and get it off my own chest.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I watch my husband every time we go on holiday. He fights guilt that he's on holiday, and I have to talk him down and say it's okay. You work hard. You work hard, and you work hard so that you can enjoy life. We're not here on this planet to just work, you know.
Yes,
So
right.
yeah, and the guilt that he feels. So yes, I absolutely see and acknowledge that it's not just a female experience.
I can't put my finger on it exactly, and I probably wouldn't do if I could, not at this moment, but Julie, there's something there that's changed about you. There we go. There's something changed. Probably I need to just think it through further, and it's quite deep. It's not on the surface. Okay.
I saw a guy with wearing a T-shirt, and printed on the T-shirt was "Recovering Catholic."
Yeah. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh,
I think the sense that I get, Julie, is that like the journey, like even though it was this 700 kilometers, I get the sense that, you know, the journey continued when you got back.
yep.
And part of that journey was the depression, because that was, you know, your journey actually hadn't finished. It was all, and it's continuing as you process the journey through this new journey that you're back. To me, it feels like it's a sense of there's a continuity, there's a flow in your life that I feel is happening as a result of the choice you made, but also as the result of you processing everything that went on during then.
Yeah, absolutely. And and a lot of the conversation in the forums about after, everybody talks about that pilgrimage isn't just the walk. Pilgrimage is a lifelong journey. Pilgrimage began the day you were born, although you were not aware of it. And some people go their entire lives and not realize they're on pilgrimage. And that's okay, because that's the way it's meant to be for them. And yes, that this Camino, I'm still walking Camino every day, even though I'm living in godforsaken Ipswich in Brisbane, and and it does affect how I move forward. And I still, when I went into the one thing I wanted to come out of it was for that time to reflect on, okay, I've had 50 years on this earth. What have I done with it? Have I done anything significant? Do I want to have done something significant because my ego asks it of me? And what do I want for the next 30, 40 years that I'm granted on this planet, because I want to leave it a better place. I don't just want to go through the motions. I don't want to get to my deathbed and go, oh, you know what? I just got up and did the same thing every single day without thought or mindfulness. So, and I still don't have an answer for that. You know, I'm teaching dance again after a break, which is magnificent. And I need a creative, expressive outlet. And that feels right, but I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. So, and sometimes that makes me incredibly uncomfortable, and I feel like I'm wasting every day that I wake up. And other times I'm okay with it, just depends on my mood. So yeah, and that's part of that pilgrimage going forward. What is my pilgrimage going to look like? What am I contributing to my fellow man? So yeah.
Julie, I feel privileged to have been here in this meeting. I really do. I thank you for your oh so candid and typically Julie presentation.
Mouthiness.
That's great. Now, Julie, I might have walked 32 Ks in my mind today, but I didn't. But I'm now tired.
Yes.
So do you mind if I sign out?
Oh, not at all. It's lovely to hear your voice, and I'm glad you made it, Ian. Thank you for listening to me rattle on.
Okay, and thanks, David, for having us. Having me. Thank you, mate.
It's a pleasure. I'll just note that we will be putting the recording up on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch the rest of it later.
Thanks, David. Thanks, mate. Thanks, everybody. God bless you.
Bye. God bless.
Bye, Ian.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Just got some photos of my walk. If you're interested, I've just got 3 slides with 4 photos on each, but the first one that you can see on the left of your screen, that's sort of going through one of the streets in Lyon, walking on those pathways. And that was in the morning. It was lovely and quiet wandering through there. You can see on the second photo the kilometre way marker with the arrow and the shell. There are often those in the fields that you had to follow. The third photo is one of the irrigation systems. You see a lot of these through the Meseta on the plains, so taking water to all the crops in the fields. And then the last photo, the one thing I've really enjoyed about it is the Spaniards' love for art to celebrate things. And so the Camino is just littered with artworks about the Camino itself to celebrate anniversaries and things like that. So yeah, that's a nice little pilgrim image there. I loved the countryside. See the 4th picture, so the last one on your right, the row of trees and the path beside the road. I stopped at lunchtime under one of those trees one day, just lay down and put my legs up the tree and had a sleep. I slept for about 40 minutes. It was magnificent. And when I woke up, I thought, I've never had a daytime nap like that. It was really good. And people would stop and say, you okay? You okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just having a rest. And they're like, oh, okay, off you go, Bon Camino. The Garda would often be on their horses or on cars. They would be along the path, just checking, making sure the pilgrims were safe. And they came to me as the lady who liked to nap. So I made sure I always stopped for a nap and put my legs up a tree so that, if there was any swelling in my feet, it would just go down. And yeah, but you can see the poppies in the first photo. The fields are full of poppies to the point where some of the rice fields or the wheat fields would be choked with poppies. And the canola you can see in the second one, there are canola fields that just, it was beautiful. And the smell of canola was, amazing. Just a beautiful smell. All the way along, you come to crosses along the way, and those crosses for various reasons people put them there. So people are allowed to just erect them, or maybe a town will erect it in the memory of someone, or so, and they're often a nice place to stop and just sort of sit and reflect. And you can see the pile of stones under that cross. There's a very big cross sort of at the highest point of the Camino. That's not that cross, but if you carry some stones along the way, they're meant to symbolize burdens that you carry, and then you leave those burdens there at the highest point of the Camino under the cross, and then you're supposed to walk on with more of a lightness. I carried a couple of stones because people contacted me and said, can you carry a stone for this reason? I said, yep, that's fine. Or I had one friend ask me to carry a stone. She said, I'm not going to tell you the reason why, but I'll know why you're carrying it. So I carried those stones and my own as well. And then when I got to the Iron Cross, which is Ferro de Cruz, I videoed myself just placing those burdens at the foot of the cross, and I sent that video to those people, letting them know that I'd left their burden there for them, and hope that they felt maybe a lightness in that moment. So that was quite a special thing. And then the last 2 photos, it's me in front of the cathedral, and my boots, which I got 1,000 kilometers out of those boots because I'd worn them in before I went, and They were
Wow.
at the point where they were just flat, like if you ran your hand over them, the soles were flat and you could feel every damn stone. They were so thin. So they stayed in Spain in a bin. But if you're looking for some good footwear, Keens is the way to go. Yeah, they reckon you can get 700 to 1,000 kilometers out of a pair of Keens, and yeah, that was my second pair of Keens that I've ever owned. So yeah, there you go. So that's
And they're comfortable straight away.
oh yeah, absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
important.
They've got beautiful arch support in them. I wear hiking boots that come up around my ankles because I like ankle support. I'm a bit nervous about, I don't want to ever roll my ankle and lose my ankle stability because I'm a dancer. They're light. Oh my gosh, they are so light. They weigh mere grams. I don't know what they're made of, but it's magic. And then you can see over the toe, it's like a rubber toe cap, which is very hard, which I love because if you do stub your toe on a rock or whatever, you can't feel it. So, sorry.
It's good.
No, we're just agreeing.
Yeah. They're supportive, they're light, they protect your feet, and you get kilometers out of them. So yeah, and I've never had a problem with the shoelaces. How some shoelaces fray and break. I've never had that problem with my Keens. Like those shoelaces were still in excellent nick by the time I got to the end. So yeah, they're wonderful shoes. So, but see, I don't suffer from blisters. And I think that's years and years of dancing on point. My feet are they're just hard. So, but then having said that, Ken has soft fairy feet and he wears Keens and he hasn't had blisters wearing his Keens either. So I just think they're wonderful shoes. Yeah, so that's
1,000 kilometers in a shoe. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. I don't know many people who get 1,000 kilometers out of a pair of shoes.
Yeah, good walking they were. So yeah. But, yeah, so I've just bought a new pair because Ken and I are going to Romania and Bulgaria in June. We're just going to do 2 short walks and just some traveling around. So I can't wait to.
So what's a short walk then?
Oh, we're just going to do 2 8-day walks.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 2 8-day walks. Okay, fine. That's your short walk. Man, wow.
So, and I'm actually a bit nervous. Like I'm excited for it, but I'm a bit nervous because I'm not walking on my own, and I know it's not my pilgrimage, and it's going to be really hard to go into it and not compare it to this magnificent walk that I've just finished. So I have to, sooner or later, before I go, I'm going to have to get into that headspace of I'm going to do something different, and I'm sharing this with my husband, and this is in a different country, and yeah. So that's also going to be a difficulty, changing my mindset so that I can go into it open to whatever that experience offers to me.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if anybody's got any last minute questions before we close this evening.
Well, that sounds getting.
It is exciting. Yeah, it's such a wonderful walk.
That's good. Well, look, Julie, I'll say thank you very much. It's been quite a profound evening, I think. It's been not at all what I expected, I think.
No.
Be able to share your emotional and spiritual journey of this. It's very much. It's not been a tourist guide or the typical television travel program. We've really entered into it with you, and that's just been such a pleasure to be able to hear you. And I'm glad that we've been able to give you that space as well that you wanted to be able to share that experience. So that's been very special, I think, for us to be here and part of that journey. So I thank you for everything you shared with us tonight. As I mentioned, it'll go up on the website in a couple of days, so people will be able to come back and look at it and share it with other people around the world too. So yeah, thank you for everything you've said, and thanks for coming here with us.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was I didn't go into it expecting to share some of the things that I shared, but it just unfolds the way it does. So, but I'm grateful that you held space for me and let me let me share it, and just, you know, from the practicalities through to everything else. So yeah, and if anyone wants to go forward and do it, I can't encourage you enough. And there's a pilgrim, there's a Camino in Australia, which finishes at where Mary MacKillop's supposedly laid to rest. If you can't travel overseas and you want to walk Australian pilgrimage, you can look that one up. So yeah.
Interesting, lovely. Thank you. Thanks.
All
And
right,
look, before we finish, we normally have a Friday night meeting at the end of every month. We won't have one in March for the simple reason that the last Friday in March is Good Friday.
Oh.
So our next discussion group meeting will be the end of April. We're welcoming Erica Schnarr once more. She spoke to us in April last year about Swedenborg in India, and she's talking to us, I think this coming time is about breathing techniques and spiritual breathing practices. So that will be 2 months' time. We'll send the information around as we normally do a week or so before that meeting takes place, but just to let you know what's going on in the future. Okay, so look, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks again, Julie. It's been lovely journey. And, yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
lovely. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so very much.
Thanks everyone.